We're extremely excited to have this piece here. We've long described ourselves for nearly 50 years as a museum of science, art, and human perception. And of course, this mesmerizing piece really brings together all three of those things. I want to thank Refik Anadol for bringing his exciting vision here, and Epson for making it possible with their cutting-edge laser projection technology that brings it all to life.
Refik has been building these immersive environments, and this is one of them, the Infinity Room. And why we're excited about showing it here at the Exploratorium is that he's interested in your physicality within architectural spaces. And it's this questioning of like how you feel when you walk in somewhere and how that can be sort of manipulated by the environment.
Everyone in their home has a room that is the most basic architecture space. As we are all, I think, in our childhood, we always dream about spaces. Perhaps our rooms become our new dimensions and new curious new spaces. So when you open the door, you first see that there is no floor. And when you look at up and there is no ceiling. And that feeling of, I think, unlearning the reality and just open a new dimension to our imagination is the first impact.
It's interesting that it's called a room, because I think a room implies kind of space and confined walls and restrictions, but being in the Infinity Room, because of how it's set up and what I'm seeing and hearing, it completely disrupts that notion of what a traditional room might be like.
It's a 12 by 12 foot room with 12-foot high ceilings. It's 12 feet deep by 12 feet wide. Has a mirrored floor and ceiling and 4 really intense laser projectors that have an extremely bright light. Between the light and the mirrors and the darkly painted walls, he's created a space where the walls actually disappear around you.
When you look down or you look up, it's kind of like looking into infinity. And based off the different loops and patterns that are being projected, sometimes it almost makes you feel like you're deep in the ocean and all these fish are swimming around you. Or sometimes you feel like you're beyond the universe and you're in this deep galaxy.
It's clear that the projectors were considered highly for this piece, and you couldn't just do it with any old beamer. I think that the contrast and intensity of the projectors really help. We're projecting onto a dark wall, it's black. Traditionally, projection screens are white or more reflective. This, you need a lot of power to kind of capture that, and of course that contrast helps make that wall recede into the background, that you can only experience the light. So the brightness of the projector is super essential to this.
And these lenses too have got to be incredible because it's such a short throw. But having the sharpness, incredible image quality, the contrast. You know, in this piece is blacks and whites and grays, and grays are so hard to do. Even black is really hard to do with projection. So to really make it work, where there's room, you know, between some of the pieces, it falls off the black, it's got to really get dark in there. And then for those contrasts to really work, you've got to have those subtle steps, those subtle gradients between your black and white and in the dark gray.
I've been really thinking a lot lately about experiential, immersive experience type things, and if they're art or if they're not art. And it was really apparent as soon as I walked in that this was an art piece, and it took me somewhere else. And I think that that's what good art is supposed to do.
Immersion is a word that gets thrown around a lot, and this is obviously immersive, but immersion isn't always transporting, and I think this piece is truly transporting. And the other, I think, really special thing about this piece is that it has a social component just because multiple people are in the room together, which is something that you don't get in VR or in a flat surface visualization.
I love having Infinity Room here at the Exploratorium because in many ways it's a just kind of ongoing conversation we have with cinematic landscapes here. And so we love to bring work in that gives us alternative ways of experiencing this world of ours.
For every person to come in here, it's a very subjective experience. Everyone is probably going to have their own unique visceral experiences, which I think is really neat and also parallels what's on the floor at the Exploratorium. People kind of arrive at their own truths.
So at the Exploratorium, arts and science are really integrated, so much of the art that's on the floor in the museum isn't called out as artwork. We want it to have the same effect that many of our science exhibits have. And I think this is a perfect example of that because it has a mathematical component that you can consider. Some people have stepped in there and looked around and tried to figure out what dimension of infinity they're looking at. It also is using emerging technology in a way that highlights the technology, but also is very much about the magic of it.
I mean, as LNCK said, the best way to depict feature is to invent it. I guess the very similar approach is the same. The Infinity Room is having the same vibe around this wonderful quote. So I think by inventing this experience, perhaps we are inventing another ideas that is living in the brain, in the perception of audience, and hopefully that inspiration that will grow in a way that make another impact in the world.